transport industry is. The transport industry is, there's actually a need for us to ensure that we drive everything. This design must be driven with science, technology, and innovation. And like I said earlier on, in driving it, we need to educate people properly. We need to empower them. We need to enlighten them on why we are doing what we are doing and the benefits thereof, even to the people we are looking at. One interesting thing I must not fail to say is that our emphasis is gradually also shifting to inclusiveness, even at NACETEM. Next week, for instance, now, we'll be looking at some roles of science, technology, and innovation in development, going to the grassroots, and then see how can we look at some of these vulnerable people, because most of them can be found at the grassroots. And these are things we actually want to interrogate, even at the workshop that we have next week. In a nutshell, NACETEM is ready from time to time to partner with all stakeholders in this regard and to ensure that our goal of achieving inclusive development in the transport industry is actually achieved. And that is the message from the DG NACETEM, Dr. Omimakinde, this morning. And I want to wish everyone very fruitful deliberations as we go about this workshop this morning. Once again, I say a big thank you to the organizers and every other person present here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isikolu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oluyi, representative of DG NACETEM. We appreciate the wonderful keynote address by the DG NACETEM. That is very interesting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Also, we appreciate all our participants on this platform at the moment. We say a very, very, very big thank you for sacrificing your time to be here. And we promise once again, you won't regret this. You will go home with something very handy, and this program is going to highly impactful like we promised. Right now, I'll be introducing Dr. Chutokole to come and give us a brief presentation about CEMRI before handing over again to the moderator in person of Dr. Mogaji. Mr. Chutokole, you're welcome at the moment. Please, can you take over the mic and tell us and tell our participants what we need to know about CEMRI? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Loudly and clearly, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chukwuma Okoli. I'm a research associate with CEMRI and also the project manager for our monthly roundtable discussions. I welcome you all to this wonderful workshop happening this November, Transformative Transport Service Design. This is a workshop organized jointly by three organizations. We have the NITT, NACETEM, and CEMRI. And we're very happy to have this joint collaboration that has yielded this fruitful workshop where we have all of you today. So I'll quickly give a short overview of what CEMRI is, and what we do. CEMRI is the Center for Multidisciplinary Research and Innovation. We're a leading research and innovation group bridging the gap in innovative research between Africa and the developed continents. We focus on collaboration among African researchers and institutions, and this is crucial to finding solutions to issues that confront African nations. And today's workshop, where we are looking at transformative transport service design, is very much in line with this vision of CEMRI, and also it also fulfills the mandates of the visionary mandates of our collaborators, NACETEM and NITT. So within Africa, we have so many enormous problems in Africa, which fortunately can be addressed through collaboration. because these challenges that we all face, they affect all of us. They are common challenges. And so there should be a deliberate effort to promote collaboration across the continent. And this is why such a forum and such a workshop exists, and has been brought forward today. So we're very happy to have all of you today. And we hope that, as this workshop continues, that useful insights will be bettered, and collaborations would also be initiated. We also hope that as we continue to articulate articulate our ideas and streams of thought that are coming from the different panelists and the members, we hope that these insights would come together to inspire further action that would help to achieve or promote success, in line with the topic of today's workshop. Just some rounding note on CEMRI. We are registered in Ghana, Nigeria, and in Finland. We also offer training, research, and consultancy services with the aim of facilitating, intra-African collaboration and promoting development. And we are multidisciplinary. So we invite and we have researchers from different disciplines. And it's not just researchers in the academia. We also, even professionals like some of you, professionals in industry, and in different sectors of society. We welcome collaboration, and we hope to continue to be relevant to issues that border on sustainable development. So that's a quick one. I'm going to drop a link to our website and some of our social media pages on the chat for you all. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a successful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Chuks, for that wonderful presentation about CEMRI. Right now, I'll be handing over once again to Dr. Emmanuel Mogaji, the moderator for this particular workshop program. Dr. Mogaji, you're welcome on the floor, sir.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dixon. It's a pleasure to listen to everybody and to really see where we have the same shared ideas. So please let me share my slide, and then we can make a proper start. Yes. Can you see my screen?
We can, Dr. Mogaji.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much again for this time. My name is Emmanuel Mogaji, and this is a joint collaboration between the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology, the National Center for Technology Management, and Center for Multidisciplinary Research and Innovation. So today's workshop is around transformative transport service design. And at the end of the workshop, it's expected that you have an understanding of the concept of transformative transport service design, and recognizing different stakeholders here. You will be the expectation is you should have an understanding of the vulnerable commuters and their engagement with transport service provision, and also to reflect on the short-term and immediate action that you can take to address the concerns of the vulnerable commuters. Number 4, I expect you to also be able to reflect on your long-term action in redesigning your service. And lastly, I think to align with what Dr. Chuk was saying about research, for us to carry out more research to really have a better understanding of the vulnerable commuters and their engagement with the transport service provision. So just a bit about myself. My first degree was in architecture, and I've always been interested in the built environment. I've been interested in the way things are well designed and arranged. But now I'm in a business school whereby I research on service management. And for me, transportation is one of those services that needs to be discussed, but often not discussed. Yes, you've got the financial services, which is actually the big one. The retail is also another big one, but recognizing that transport is also a very important sector that needs to be addressed. And I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Greenwich, and I'm based in the UK. But my research is also around this idea of transformative transport services, and also to see how we can recognize the struggles of people with disabilities, the struggle of vulnerable adults, and how can we shape our transport facilities to enhance their own travel experience. So thank you again to the organizers. It's a pleasure to work with you all to make sure today is a success. Thank you. You are very, very much appreciated. And special thanks again to the DGs. Yes, despite their busy schedule, they had us in mind, and they even had to send representatives to join us. So it's a pleasure to have their own blessings and to have their own support on this program. So the background. Firstly, we need to recognize that there is a growing body of research investigating the marketplace accessibility and vulnerable disability and consumer disability and vulnerability. And I think it also aligns with what the DG from the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology was also saying about the need to understand the disabled commuters and see how transport services can be designed to accommodate their need. And we are being exposed, these disabled consumers and vulnerable consumers are often being exposed to precarious experiences, which limit how they travel around. I saw one of those pictures from the slide of the DG from NITT, whereby somebody was being pushed in a wheelchair into like a tricycle. Again, that's one of those things that you feel, could this person have been able to move around without being struggled to push into a tricycle? And marketplace accessibility is becoming crucial for businesses. So if as a business, if your company is not accessible for people, if your office is not accessible, for example, if you don't have ramp, if you don't have lift, those things can really affect how much people want to engage with your organization. So we recognize that creating that access is very important. And moving on, the reluctance, vulnerability, and the anxiety of some of these consumers, it's also deciding how they use their service. So you don't be surprised that some people will be thinking every day, how do I need to travel to work when I don't even know how I will get to the bus stop? Because the road is bad, there is no real transport facility to get them from one point to another. And we also recognize the consumer's level of vulnerability, and their transition towards that vulnerability influence their decision. So some people might be able to climb a staircase, perhaps even with their crutches, but again, many people might find it difficult to do that. And also we recognize that there are many definitions of disability. Again, going back to the slide of the NITT DG about that umbrella and different things that makes of disability. While some individuals might be self-sufficient, they can take care of themselves, but we also recognize that there is often a struggle for many people in trying to find their way around. And moving on, we recognize that when business and services, including public transport firms, they are expected to prioritize often excellent quality services and experience to their customers so that they will return in the future. So that, like I was saying about the ramp, saying about the lift, and even some assistive technology, we want to recognize that there are huge responsibilities on organizations to make sure these things are fine. But often the problem has been the fact that this expectation is with the companies, with the with the owners of the place, and not the transport facilities to get to that place. So for example, you might think of, oh, in my own workplace, there is a lift. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can go to your office. There is this assistive technology around. If you need a call, you can just press the bell, people will get your attention. There's a braille around for you to find your way. But the point is, we often don't talk about how do people get to work? How do people get to where they need to use that lift? How do people get to the cinema? How do people get to their church or to their mosque? Okay, yes, all those facilities are accessible, but how about the journey? How about the process before we get them? And again, when we talk about vulnerability, Often we might think it's all about people who are disabled, but this whole idea is for us to recognize that it's wide. Somebody who is pregnant at that time can be vulnerable. Imagine a pregnant woman trying to run after a bus because she doesn't want to be late for work. So at that stage, that pregnant woman is a vulnerable commuter. So even though she's not disabled, even though she's not on a wheelchair, but because of her present state at that time, she's in a vulnerable state. Even our aged parents, many people using walking stick, older parents, how do they even struggle to get on the buses? How do they struggle to get on the platform, perhaps on a train station, whereby you need to climb staircase, and there's no escalator, there's no lift. And again, the transport system is there, but the design of the station has brought a problem. So while we recognize that, yes, somebody who is disabled as well on a wheelchair, I've got that, but also having children can also put you in a very vulnerable state. So imagine you're trying to catch a bus and you're holding your son, you're backing one and you expect the bus perhaps stop for you, to slow down, for you to go in with your children, you sit down properly before the bus goes on. But often that's not always the case. The buses are always in a hurry. The commuter expected to jump and really catch up the bus and go. And how do we really design this and to make sure that, yes, will our customers come back if our service is like that? And this is an advert that I saw on LinkedIn, and I thought, you know what, I will share it with you here. This is about the gap between the platform and the train. And the advert says, to you, it's just a small gap. That is, to people who are perhaps able, it's just a small gap. But for many people who are disabled, who are vulnerable, that could be a very, 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 very large gap. And the point is, do we need to design service for everybody, or we need to design service for people who are just able? And that's one of those things to also recognize as we go along with this conversation, saying, how do we really design our service to make sure it's engaging, to make sure it's safe for people to use? So please have this picture at the back of your mind. Remember that, yes, to you, it could just be a small gap, but for some other person, is a very, very large gap. So the question is, would you expect your commuters to return if you provided such a bad service, a bad design, and excluding design? Or you think they don't have a choice? Think about this. Do you think they don't have a choice? They will always have to use our service. So even though we are providing a very bad service, yes, people will always come. Don't worry, we don't need to do this. Or do we want to really take action and do something to make sure that people feel safe when they are using our transport services? So that's a question. And from the expectation that I shared earlier on, this is something I want you to reflect on as you go on with this workshop. What are you responsible for? What are you designing? Are you a transport planner? Are you a transport operator? How is your services? Do you think you've been providing good service for people to come, or you think anything goes for them? So reflect on that, because the vulnerability for you, it might not affect you right now, but remember, it's a state of well-being which can be temporal or permanent. So remember the example I gave about a woman who is pregnant. At that point, she's vulnerable, because if she falls down, she can hurt herself, hurt the baby, and again put herself in danger. So at that stage, you expect everything considerably to be provided to ensure that people are able to access these transport facilities without struggle. So even though you've got children, you can have you have children and you're carrying them on a buggy. You don't want to be carrying your buggy, or what's called where you put your push chair. You don't want to carry that push chair across the staircase because you are trying to get a bus or get a train. So how do we make sure that these things are in place? Remember, this is not just about people with disability. It's just for people who are vulnerable. And remember, it can be a temporal. Yes, if your children have all grown up, you've moved that stage. If you've given birth and yes, you are no longer pregnant, you've moved that stage. But also, some people are on a wheelchair permanently. So we don't know what will happen And that is why it's important to recognize the need to develop and to design an inclusive service. So inclusive service here recognize the fact that you are mindful of everybody that is going to use your service. So inclusive service can be applicable in other sectors, but the focus here is on transport services to see how can we design our transport facilities, our transport services to be inclusive in the sense of accepting people for who they are, irrespective of their ability. We are able to make sure that, yes, they are able to use our service without any extra help, any extra assistance. So that means if somebody wants to get from point A to point B, it doesn't need to call you saying, Emmanuel, please come and open the gate for me, I want to go out. So you expect somebody to just go into the main entrance of the hall, go through the escalator, or go through the lift, come down to the lift, the platform is accessible, the door will open, the person will go in without any struggle. And that's actually what you expect to be. If you are designing like maybe a public transport by bus, you expect it to have a plane level access to the bus. Again, this is something we want to recognize as part of inclusive design. So this built up from the research strand that is called the Transformative Service Research. So this is an article that was published in 2013 in the Journal of Business Research. It's called the Transformative Service Research. So this is going to about 10 years now, which entails integrating consumers and service research with a focus on creating developmental changes. That is, to bring in some changes that will help consumers to feel at ease when they're using this service. So it's an interaction between the customers and the employees in regards to their well-being, to make sure that whenever they use their service, they're being treated fairly. So the TSR also portrays the interaction between the consumers and the service entity and their immediate macro environment. So when we talk about the macro environment, we recognize the fact that it varies. For example, what is applicable in the UK in terms of macro environment might not be applicable in Nigeria in terms of the environment, in terms of the policy, in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the finances, in terms of access to support. And TSR recognizes that individuals are surrounded by service systems that significantly affect their lives and well-being. So these are services which includes maybe your bank, your health service, your transport service. So this recognizes the fact that people might want to access hospital health services, but because they do not have money, they are excluded. Also, many people might want to access financial services, but because they do not have an ID card, they are excluded from financial services. So this is what transformative service research is all about. For us to see how can we position our service to accommodate people's need, irrespective of their background or their struggle. So that means how can a bank help people get access to financial services even if they don't have an ID card? How can we shape our service to accommodate people saying, okay, you don't have an ID card. Is there ways that we can help you to verify this is you? Are there products that we can give you, even though we know you don't have this level of identification? Also, in transport services, this is where we focus on. How do we really focus? How do we really encourage people on the transport services, the system, the network, to make sure that, yes, things are done properly, they feel safe, and they're able to move from point A to point B without being putting themselves in danger. So the TSR emerged from health research, financial services, and now trying to expand it and to extend it further into transport services design. And this is what we call the transformative transport service design. We start with that conscious strategic decision to do what is right. It's about that conscious decision saying, I know that people struggle to get on my bus. As a bus owner, as a bus driver, I will make sure I wait. I will make sure people go in and sit down properly on my bus before I move. Though I need to make money, I need to complete my daily earnings, I will be mindful of my consumers and my commuters and make sure everything is fine. If you operate like a transport hub, you want to make sure to check, are there sitting facilities? Are my lifts and escalators working? Is there something that allows my commuters to really feel safe when they use these transport services? So those are some of those things to really consider when talking about transformative service design in transport. So this has also emerged from some of my research on the transport and mobility decisions of commuters with disability, and also understanding their satisfaction as they go about with services. So this has been published in the Journal of Consumer Behavior, whereby we recognize commuters as consumers, and they have rights, they have their own need when it comes to using transport services. So the consumers who are disabled, who are vulnerable, they also have the right to good transport services. But the point is, what's been going on? What are the transport operators doing? And another research that was published in the Transportation Research Part D looked at the satisfaction of these disabled passengers to see how are they even satisfied with the transport services that they have been using. And this is where you see people who are getting angry because they are not satisfied with the transportation services. They are looking for alternative, but again, they do not have that resources. And with this understanding, that's why we've come about with the transformative transport service design to see. We recognize that there are huge problems with people who are disabled, people with disabilities, either short-term or long-term, people who are vulnerable. What do we do to make sure that, yes, their needs are addressed? And this is where we came up with the idea of the transformative service design as a framework to recognize that there is a social interaction between the service entities and the consumer entities. So if I can just briefly explain this, when you have a transport service, you are providing that service. So you are that service entity, you are that company. But also you've got the consumer who needs to use your service. And there is that interaction between the commuter, the consumer, who is interacting with your transport service. But in this interaction, we also recognize that there are some barriers with this interaction. So that means this interaction is going on within some significant barriers that we need to recognize. Firstly is around the micro barriers. So these are barriers that perhaps relate to the drivers, relate to their own infrastructure. We also need to recognize some barriers that relate to the transport facilities. For example, if you are a bus driver, yes, you own, let's say, Danfo, or like whatever, you own a public transport and you operate into a garage. So that means, and the garage is in, let's say, Lagos State. So you've got the bus driver as a significant barrier. You've got the bus terminal. Remember, the bus operator does not really have much impact into the terminal, but also you've got the government who gives you that background, who gives you the whole overall structure. So you've got the three layers: the immediate transport operator, the service provision environment, which could be the bus terminal, and the government and the policy. And if you take this further, you can see it as, let's say you've got British Airways, who is operating its transport services. They are flying into Muritala Mohammed Airport, but Muritala Mohammed is also within Nigeria. So you've got these different barriers. What are the barriers for these vulnerable commuters in entering the plane, in entering the bus, which is that micro barrier, the small one, the immediate one? What is their challenge in entering the plane, in entering the bus, even entering the train. That's the micro. Then the meso is about the service provision environment. What are their challenges in going around the airports, in going around the train terminal, or in going around the bus terminal? Remember, the bus terminal is in between the transport operator and the government and maybe the country. So that means you might have good design for your bus, you might have good design for your train, or you have good design for your airline, for your planes. But how about if people struggle to find their way within the bus terminal? Again, you as a transport owner, you don't have responsibility towards their struggle within the terminal, but it's something that affects their overall experience. So let's go back to the example of the British Airways flying into Nigeria. So you are a vulnerable consumer. Let's say you are flying from the UK. British Airways has really taken care of you. They've addressed your need. They've given you enough support to use the flight. So the micro barrier is removed, remember? But the meso barrier is now you got to Muritala Mohammed Airport. There is no escalator. There is no lift. How do you find your way around the terminal? British Airways has done their own bit, but again, you recognize that there is this problem with the airport, with the bus terminal, which is the meso. Then the macro is like now you're in Nigeria, and even there's no policy to protect you. People are not really putting that policy in place. So this is not even something that affects the airport. It's something that affects the whole country generally. And also, macro barriers could recognize the fact that in some countries, there are rules and regulations and policy that addresses that. So that is being removed. So remember I said you've got the service entity and the consumer entity. There is that interaction. But the idea is you want that interaction to permeate, to come through the micro barriers, the meso barriers, and the macro barriers, and for you to have a good experience. So that means from the airline, you are fine. Through the terminal, you are fine. And even when you get to Nigeria, everybody is treating you fine because there is that policy. So you expect that there is that ability to overcome all those barriers. And that is the whole essence of the transformative service design, to show you that if you look at the left-hand side, saying from the service entity, what are you doing with your design, with your service design, to make sure that it goes through all these barriers, it overcomes all those barriers, and you can guarantee well-being of people. But also we need to sort of recognize the social interaction. So this is when people get involved. This is very interesting, and this is something we found out from the research. This is where people try to engage with you when it comes to your service interaction. So remember, this could be positive. So that means you go to Muritala Mohammed Airport, there's no escalator, or you go to the train station, there's no escalator, there's no lift, there's no facility, and you have people who are supporting you, perhaps even carrying you on the staircase with your wheelchair, carrying you to the top of the floor. So that interaction can be positive. You can also have it when it's negative, when people are complaining that the driver is waiting for somebody on a wheelchair to come in and settle down. Again, many people are in a hurry, but you as a service provider, you are trying to make sure that this commuter comes in safely and sits down. But you could have some people on the bus saying, driver, please move on. Please, we are in a hurry. Also, you could have people who are neutral, people who will not even say anything. You are struggling with this, they will not even recognize anything. But the point is, the responsibility falls on the service provider to see what can you do to make sure that your design permeates through these challenges. And when we talk about the service entity, it could be the operators, it could be the driver, it could be the conductor, it could be the transport policymakers, to see what are you doing to make sure that, yes, everybody is safe when they are using your service. What are you doing to make sure that everybody is safe when they are going through your service ecosystem? And this is something we recognize from the people who are disabled and who are struggling with their commuting. Often they reflect on their ability. can I do this on my own? That is, can I just travel from point A to point B? With my disability, with my struggle, can I travel? Then they think about the availability. Okay, I want to travel from point A to point B. Is there somebody that can help me? Do I need to get a wheelchair? Is my wheelchair able to get on a bus? Is this bus open enough? Has this bus got a ramp for me to use my wheelchair and get in? Then that is where we talk about the accessibility. Yes, again, these facilities are available, but are they really accessible? So look at the first image that was shared during the presentation of the DG from NITT about the person on a wheelchair that is being pushed into a tricycle. So the tricycle is available, yes, but is that accessible? Maybe not. That's not the best. That's not really accessible. But often they also check, is this something that is affordable? So that means if you're looking at something that is accessible, can you really afford it? So this is where we got people who are going ahead to customize their car because they want to have their own easy access to transport. So they went ahead to customize their cars and change the gears and change the pedals and change the steerings so that they can use it. And that's why I talk about affordability. Can you afford this accessible option? But the last question again they ask is, how reliable is this transport service that I want to use? Would they not disappoint me? Though I can afford them, I can pay for them. Though I've paid for this Uber to come and pick me, is it reliable? Will this Uber really come on time? So these are some of those challenges that these consumers are thinking about. And when we talk about inclusive design, look at this picture. Imagine if you are on a wheelchair, or if you are blind and you are using a cane, or even if you are pregnant, how do you want to get into this bus? How do you want to get in? So just put yourself in that situation, recognize the challenge that many people might be facing when they try to use this bus. Look at this train. Look at the gap between the platform and the train entrance. Remember the advert I showed to you at the very beginning. To you, it's just a very small gap. But to somebody else, that's very dangerous. And that begs the question, how inclusive is these transport services that we are designing? And again, when you look at this ferry, you want to get on the boats. How accessible do you think this bus is? Just think about it. Yes. Remember, you can put your comment or your chat in the question and answer for you to just let know what you're thinking about. Because we are talking about accessibility, we are talking about inclusive design. How do you provide this type of service and make sure that people who are disabled, somebody who is pregnant, who needs to hold on to things and take care, somebody with children, somebody who is using a walking stick, or somebody who is even deaf, how do we make sure that they are able to access this service? So these are some of those things I want you to reflect on as we talk about the transformative transport service design. Remember, it's about transformation. It's about that change. What are those changes? What are those things that we can do to really make sure that everybody feels safe on our transport facilities? So going back to this slide, do you really consider them when you're talking about transport design? Do we really think about aged parents, pregnant women, or even people with children? Or we just think it's all about people who are disabled? So this is something, again, I want you to reflect on, to recognize the fact that vulnerability, it's a spectrum, it varies. There's no one group and it's not permanent. It can be permanent rather, and it can also be temporal. So what do we need to do? So this is about awareness and determination that equity is paramount, even when it's not convenient. So that means as transport service operators, you are expected to put measures in place for equity. That is, whoever is coming to use your transport service, they are safe and they are able to use this. So reflect on this question. Should we provide equitable access? Should we be bothered? Should we go extra mile to make sure that everybody is safe when we are using this transport? Should we be bothered to take actions and improve services? So these are some of those questions that TTSD will ask you, will expect you to reflect on, and will expect you to challenge yourself to say, am I doing enough in my own service? Or when you see services that are not done properly, can you challenge bad practices? Can you tell the driver to wait and allow the passengers to come in safely? What would you be doing? So TTSD expects managers to reflect on the existing service provision and evaluate what can be done to enhance the consumer's well-being. So this is the challenge for managers to reflect and say, what are we doing and what can we do? Is there a way we can really improve this service? So in recognizing some of the principles of TTSD, number one is to design services with an understanding of the diverse need of the audience they serve. So that means you want to recognize that you are not just serving men. When you are providing your service, you are not just serving strong men who can run after the bus. You are not just serving strong men who can jump the platform. You are not just serving men who can run on the staircase, who does not care about escalator. You are not designing services for people who can see the bus stop and tell the driver to say, I want to highlight. You are designing services for those people who are blind, who can't see the bus stop, and will rely on some audio visuals in your bus to tell you that, oh, we'll be getting to Jodubega bus stop. The next bus stop will be Yanopaja. Again, this is something you want to recognize. You want to design services for people who are disabled that they can carefully and easily get on board, because you are designing for a diverse audience with diverse needs, diverse consumers. You want to make sure that, yes, every need is covered. So that's principle one. Principle two, to design and offer services that permeate through all the possible structural challenges. So remember, I said this is about transformation, it's about change. And your change might not be instant. It might not just be from 0 to 100. But what can you do gradually? What can you do to permeate through this possible structural challenge? Remember the figure I showed earlier on, there are 3 levels of challenge. You've got the micro, which is the driver. You've got the meso, which is the service provision environment, which could be the bus terminal, the train station, or the airport. And you have the government. So the point is, if you can't really influence policy, if you can't change the bus terminal, what can you do as a transport service operator? What changes can you bring in to say, okay, you know what? When we do our service, we will request for people to book online and to indicate if they need service, if they need maybe extra service because they're vulnerable. So that could just be one little thing you are doing to make sure that people feel safe when they're transporting. So they know that at least if I'm going on this bus, at least I know I'm guaranteed safety. I don't know what will happen when I get to the airport, but at least from point A, when I get into the bus, my needs have been taken care of. Principle 3 is to design services that remove the need for unnecessary social interaction, which can be embarrassing for consumers, for customers. So think about this. If you want to enter an office and the office has got steps, and by the step they told you, oh, if you need a wheelchair, ring a bell and we will come and pick you. Again, reflect on that. Compared to you just walking by the door will open and you go in straight. You don't need to call anybody to come and open the door for you. You don't need to wait for anybody to come and carry you, because the service has been designed to be inclusive. So reflect on those 2 instances. Somebody who is disabled, who is on a wheelchair and needs to enter an office, or rather needs to enter a place. But because this company has not provided a ramp, they said, oh, everybody who needs a wheelchair should ring a bell, should press a button, and they will call the staff, and the staff will go and get 2 other people to carry you up the staircase. Or if the service has been designed in a way that there is a ramp, the wheelchair user goes through the ramp, the door opens automatically, and the person is able to go to where he wants to go to. So this is why we need to recognize the need to remove any need for unnecessary social interaction. That is, you don't need people to be sympathizing with you. You don't need people to be saying, please, let me carry you. Oh, are you all right? Again, you want to remove those kind of interaction which can be embarrassing for some people. So this person has gone to use the terminal, let's say the terminal or airport or the train terminal, whatever terminal, and he needs to get from point A to point B. But by the time he got to the escalator or the lift, it's not working. And this guy is just staying there. And remember, it's about removing that need for that social interaction, which can be embarrassing. That is when people start coming, oh, hello, are you all right? Should I carry you? Do you need help? But if things has been fine, this person will not need to be asking for help. This person will not need to wait for people to come and carry him or her because everything is fine. So the third principle expects services to be designed to remove any need for unnecessary social interaction. And principle 4 is about designing services that support independency and ability to take control of the service interaction. So that means if I'm your boss, I don't need to ask the person beside me saying, oh, brother, please, which bus stop are we? Please, are we there yet? No, your service should be designed in a way that you will not expect consumers to be going through that level of interaction, because there is another visual in the bus that will tell you the next bus stop is this. Again, you don't need to start shouting, saying, I want to get down. You could just press a button. It's about that assistive technology. But remember the diagram I showed you too, there are barriers. Again, this is just a simple barrier from the operator to see, can I install something in my van? Can I install something on my van that will allow people to know the bus stop which I am? And the last principle is to guarantee inclusive access to the marketplace for everyone, irrespective of their ability, and to ensure the well-being of the consumers. That is, irrespective of where you are coming from, irrespective of your ability, you are able to use our service without you begging, or without you asking, or without you seeking for any form of assistance. You want to get on our bus, it's straightforward, the train is straightforward, everything seems to be fine. So I think this is something Mr. Oluyu said on behalf of the DG from NACETEM about the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is what we recognize with the TTSD, that it contributes to about 5 SDGs, the gender equality, that is, transportation is not just for men who are strong, who can run around or run the staircase or jump and run after a bus. No, you want to make sure that, yes, the service is designed for everybody. It also ensures decent work and economic growth. That is, people are able to move from one point to another to access work because the transport services has been designed in a way to accommodate their needs. And also, I will recognize the ability to reduce inequality. Yes, that's something we see TTSD being able to achieve, and also to achieve sustainable cities and develop communities. Because the point now is that you want to make sure that, yes, everybody is fine and everybody is safe. And also you want to ensure that, yes, we've got enough support to do that and to achieve the SDG partnership to achieve the goals. So moving on, the question is, and so what? Why are we talking about this? What is the need? So it's about awareness, redesign, and training. So think about those 3 words. Awareness. How are we providing this awareness? How are we providing this service? What do you know? What do you know about your own service? How aware are you about the need? Are you doing what is right? How are you dealing with vulnerable commuters? Are you reflecting on that? How are we treating our consumers? Are we treating them nice? You want to ask and observe your staff. Perhaps you have a fleet of transport, public transport, to think about how are my consumer, how are my staff providing this service? And also reflect, what can we do better? So the service scape needs to be audited and redesigned to make sure there is equitable access to all. So as part of your awareness, so this is something I expect you to reflect on, you want to carry out an audit. Put yourself in the shoe of somebody who is on a wheelchair. How are you able to access this service? Walk around. Just imagine just getting on a bus from one bus stop to another. How was this experience? And reflect on it. What can we do? What are those changes that can be done? So as part of this, you're expected to do some kind of audit. Do it with vulnerable consumers. Work with somebody who is disabled, saying, okay, Emmanuel, you know what, let's go on this bus together. You are one of our customers. Let's go on a journey together. Let me see what you are seeing. Let me feel what you are feeling, and let me experience what you go through on a normal day. Go with somebody go with an older person, a pregnant woman, to see what's their experience, what are their challenges. You want to create more awareness about their struggle, and you want to make sure you're able to address that. But also you want to walk with professional inclusive designers and perhaps academic researchers and charities to understand the need of these vulnerable consumers. So if you hold like a transport company, think about this. Go on a walk, look around your company, look around your services and say, what are we doing? How are the experiences of my commuters and what can I do to improve that? And then once you are aware, you might be start thinking of redesigning. So think about this. What barriers can I remove immediately? What are those barriers that I can remove? How about providing audiovisual cues on my buses? Providing escalators and lifts, ensuring they are working, important, yes, at bus terminals. How about making the ticket touch point more accessible? Remember, it can be expensive, I recognize that, but it's about reflecting on what you can immediately change. What are those small things that you can do? You want to think about technology to enhance consumer experience, to provide portals, perhaps through websites where people can complain and let you know that something is faulty. For example, if I'm going through your transport hub and I notice that, oh, the escalator is not working today, is there a way I can tell you so that you can come and repair it? Or you just want to leave it like, don't worry, when we have time, we come and do it. How do we collect this information? So policymakers also ensure that there are policies in place to support disabled consumers, there are regulations, and I'm sure this is something the NACETEM and NITT are also thinking about in terms of encouraging policies to support people with disabilities. In terms of redesigning, how about if you have a social enterprise like a dial-a-ride, whereby people can use a service that has been solely designed for people with disabilities? You allow them to book and customize their journey, saying, this customized cars is available for anybody with disability. You can book us in the morning or in the evening. We will take you to where you want to go and we charge you, but the charge is it's not expensive. How about assistive technologies like mobile apps, beacons, and assisting ports to make sure that, yes, people feel safe whenever they're engaging on your platform? So training is also very important. And again, thank you so much for all the organizers and everybody that has worked to get this done. Again, this is why we are doing this, to raise more awareness about this need, because public transportation in many developing countries is run by informal drivers in the informal economy. And many of them do not even really care about the services. And that is why there's need for educating the informal service providers to make sure they know the needs of the commuters and therefore they are able to meet those needs. So while previous studies and research has called for staff training, it is important to recognize the context of this training, the context of this conversation, saying this is just about drivers and how can we tailor our training to these drivers to make sure that, yes, they know what they need to know and they're able to do what they should do. So there's a call for a different approach. This may involve social marketing campaign, marketing, whereby you go to the park and you raise some awareness, you print a leaflet, show them videos saying, these are people with disability, these are people who are vulnerable. Please, you want to be careful with the way you move around. Again, it's about taking learning to the drivers. That's something to also think about. We also recognize this training could be from government initiative, it could be from corporate social responsibility or charity organizations going around to educate people. And also, we want to make sure this is something that tailors the need of the consumers, and inform the drivers about what to do. It's about the right education. And lastly, as I bring this to an end, I remember this line when there was this advert for lottery back in Nigeria then. They said, if it be you, that means you think you are fine right now, but remember, you could be vulnerable tomorrow. If it be you. If it be you, where be the person where go they look for wheelchair, where go they look for how I want to take enter bus. So the point is, this can happen to anyone. And that is why we don't need to wait till it's bad for everybody before we start thinking about it. The person that is working today might need a wheelchair tomorrow. And how do they access transport service? But remember, if we've done it very well for everybody, so that means irrespective of your vulnerability, irrespective of your situation, you will be fine. So that will be all from my side now. Thank you so much for listening to me and for your engagement. It's been a pleasure. I will open the floor for comment and feedback. And that's my contact details in case you want to contact me or you want to get my research, something I've done, I can share that with you. And also, please remember the references are available. Request if you need any clarification, please let me know. So thank you so much for having me. I will pass over now to Mrs. Dixon to handle the question and answer from introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Mogaji. What a wonderful, wonderful presentation, sir. As we all know, mobility without inclusiveness, mobility without accessibility, or a transport system without inclusiveness is as good as a failed transport system. And that is what the Nigerian transport sector should be looking at the moment. Thank God for NITT, the only transport technology in this institute in Nigeria, for the presentation of their DG. From the presentation, we can see that the focus of the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology at the moment is on inclusiveness, which is very, very, very important in any given transport system. Of course, one of the 5 major goals of transport planning is accessibility and inclusiveness, and that is what all transport systems should put into serious consideration first as far as transport planning is concerned. Thank you very much, Dr. Mogaji, for the wonderful presentation. And we also appreciate all our participants for your time, for your efforts to be part of this workshop. I want to specially identify Professor Samuel Odewumi, a professor in the School of Transport and Logistics, Lagos State University, is here online. I also want to appreciate Engineer Kazim Sanusi, is a transport consultant internationally and locally. You're welcome, sir. I also want to specially recognize Mrs. Fumilayo Laura Meku. She is a very prominent person in the field of logistics and supply chain management. We appreciate you, ma, and also a member of WILAS, Women in Logistics and Transport, Nigeria and nationally. We appreciate you. You're welcome, ma. I also want to specially appreciate everybody present in this workshop program. We appreciate you, we love you all, and we hope that the program has been highly impacting. Questions and answers are highly welcomed. If you have any question, please kindly channel your question to the question and answer session. As the speaker is readily available to give answers to your questions, and we, the hosts, are also available to give answers to your questions. Thank you very much as we continue in the program. I also want to welcome again Dr. Emmanuel Mogaji for you to be able to give answers to some questions arising. I don't know if you have gone to the question and answer session. There are several questions there which we want you to attend to, sir. Welcome again, Dr. Emmanuel Mogaji.
That's fine. Thank you so much. I guess I've seen some questions here. So I think I want to address one which says, can there be provision for special restroom for disabled in a train on aeroplane as the case may be? Yes. Again, this is part of the whole idea of the transformative transport service design to make sure that the micro challenger, which is the operator, is addressed. And I can tell you there are disabled toilets, accessible toilets on trains and on airlines. But this is something we want to recognize that perhaps not everybody will be able to do that, but it's something we hope that every airlines will do that, and every plane and train will have that facility. So this is something that we hope should be integrated and adopted. Okay, thank you. Sheu Mahmoud said, in which capacity can transformative transport design be influence the market force in the transport industry? Thank you. Again, when we talk about the market force, is about you providing a need, providing a service that can change the dynamics of the industry. So remember I said it can be very expensive, but with your consumers come back. So think about it. If you have a transport service provider that is inclusive, that respects the needs of everybody, they will be attracting more consumers. And that is going to change the market force. But the point now is how affordable can that be? And that is where we want to recognize the role of the government to provide, or maybe investors, to make sure there is this kind of support to make sure that this idea for the transformative transport design is recognized. Because it's not cheap, I must say that. It's not cheap, and that is why many people will not do it. But we also need to think about the big picture. Remember my last word, that if it be you. So that means we are not only designing for the few who are disabled, but to recognize that the ball could roll and turn anytime. And to make sure that, yes, once one person is doing it, we anticipate that, yes, that will change generally. Yes, can that provision of restroom? I think I've answered that. Okay. Yes, I've answered that. So Adewale Bashir Abdullah said, I think we are going to address the transportation crisis. We have to manage demand of all modes, particularly the road as we supply. Very good, thank you. And this is something we need to recognize as part of the meso challenge, the macro challenge which I talked about the government, about the bigger problem. So even though you are trying to solve your small problem, we've still got a bigger challenge. And that is why we should be exploring opportunities for transportation outside road. And that was why I was able to show you the train and show you the boats. To recognize that, yes, with the huge reliance on road, we are not benefiting from other mode of transportation. And these other modes have opportunity for us to also be very inclusive. So we have to manage the demands on all modes. I agree with that. But ultimately, I think we should be moving beyond just road. We need to recognize other forms of mobility, and especially the waterways and the train. Those are some of those. Please, can you mute yourself, please? Those are some of those modes to also explore. So thanks so much for raising that, and I really agree with you on that. Thank you. Oh yes, so I guess again I will need Director Transport Planning in Osun State. So that's Adewale Bashir Abdullah. Thanks so much for sharing that. So this Imrana said, Nigerian policymaker, we need to receive and implement recommendation from this workshop. Thank you so much. And again, that is why we've opened it for the general public, for the policymakers to see how can we make those changes? What do we need to know? And that is why I said awareness is very important. Do we know where we are lacking? Do we know our problems? Do we know what we are struggling with? And if we know that, how do we put policy in place to make sure that, yes, we are able to address them. That's fine. So thank you. Let me just go through the questions that I'm seeing here before I leave the floor for somebody else to make the comment. Thank you again. With the level of technology available today, many more workers should be able to work at home or satellite offices closer to home to meet this. Again, that's very important. Thank you, because this also reduce the pressure on the transport facilities when people are able to work from home. Yes, this is, maybe I will try and follow up with you, Mr. Adewale Bashir. Yes, I hope I'm addressing you properly, because we did a research on the impact of this COVID on transport services. And it's believed that if there is access to internet, if people feel safe to work at home, there'll be less pressure on the road and other facilities. So thanks so much for raising that. How can the private sector player be able to conform to this transformative design? Thank you, Daniel Haber. These players from the private sectors, I think they've got the best opportunity to really change this. Allow me to really mention a company, T40, which I'm aware of, and this is about transport tech companies who are developing transport facilities to make sure that it's inclusive. And this is where we recognize that these private organizations can bring in technologies that can be assistive to the consumers. They can bring in technology whereby you can book your journey on the app. On the app, you can tell them you need assistance. And when the bus comes around, they are able to meet your need at that particular time. They are able to plan your journey. You can actually use different mode. And also with private sectors, you can have data aggregation. So that means you've got data from different touch points. You know which transport facilities are available, which transport facilities can meet your need, and which transport facilities you might want to avoid. So again, think about open data or open source data. So that means somebody can tell you the lift in Iyanopaja terminal is broken. Look for alternative. Somebody will tell you the lift in this place is broken. Find alternatives. So you don't get to Iyanopaja and find out that the lift is broken. But because they have developed like a platform, like a journey planner, like an app that gives you the information about what is going on, these are some of those things that we expect the private sectors to do. Thank you so much. You made reference to land and air. Are there also audiovisual transport in water transportation? There should be. And this is something that is available in many of the developed countries. The fact that you are transporting people, irrespective of the mode, either on water or on air, you are expected to have those audio visuals to let people know what's going on. You don't expect them to be asking their next door neighbor saying, which bus stop are we? But if this thing is being announced, but also going back to Daniel's point about private sector, you could have this as an app on your phone that sort of buzz telling you you are almost at the bus stop. So you have this app on your phone that can connect with the transport companies and the GPS around the bus stop and can notify you by giving you a nudge or a chime on your phone telling you, Tom Tom, you're almost by the bus stop. Nobody needs to know that is where you're going to drop. Perhaps for a blind person who can't see or who can't even hear, but having their phone, you can have a vibration that tells you your bus stop is near. So again, those are some of those things to explore. This session is really nice one. Is there any provision by government for boarding and alighting from vehicle? Again, this is not really the provision of the government. So I think I need to clearly talk about it. It's not really the provision of the government, it's the provision of the transport service operators. Remember the challenges I told you of. There are three. One is the transport service operator. The second one is the service provision environment, which is the bus terminal. And third is the government with their policy. So the bus stop, the bus owner, the LASMA, the BRT, the boat operator, the train operator, this is not the government. The operator needs to make sure there is a flat surface for people to board. Wow, more questions. How can operators at the micro level influence the government to put the vulnerable accessibility into consideration? Thank you. Again, I don't think it's about individuals at the micro level influencing the government. I would think it's about the union, it's about the group. So this is not just an individual, but this is where you expect the transport operators as a union to come together and say, We need you to provide facilities that allows our consumers to come out safely at the terminal. But also remember, it's not just about the government. The individual operators has got a role to play in this. Talking about transport, what effort has been made for the Nigerian transport policies? And we now have a draft. So again, that's something we have. It's the draft national transport policy. But we hope this thing will really see the light of the day. How is it said? We hope this will actually come into fulfillment. But that's something to consider. Can we also consider female who find themselves in a situation where the driver views? Yes. Usman, please, can you mute yourself? Usman Rabiu, thank you so much for raising this point. And again, this is 2 points. Remember, I said the transformative transport design helps achieve the sustainable development goal, which is about gender equality. And number 2, I said the managers need to observe their staff, go on a journey with them, see what they are doing, go like an undercover commuter, look at what your drivers are doing. Again, this is something you can easily pick out and correct those things and make those changes. So Usman Rabiu, thank you for raising that. How can we reduce traffic hold up? Again, perhaps this is not really part of this conversation, Sulaiman Abubakar, but I think if we go back to what Mr. Abdullahi, the Osun State Transport Planner, was saying about if people work from home, perhaps that can reduce the traffic. Okay. Yes, I think there's a lot of questions here. So thank you so much. I will try and follow up. Yes. Reynolds Shodende, thank you so much for your kind words. This is really appreciated. Thank you, Reynolds Shodende. I really appreciate your kind words. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Singh, let me hand over to you. Perhaps there are many other people that might want to share some things on the call. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir, Dr. Mogaji, for the question and answer session. Before we proceed, I would like to introduce once again the DG, CEO, National Center for Technology Management. He has been online for some time now. He was actually, he's on transit, but has been able to join us online, though his speech has been delivered by his representative in person of Mr. Isaac Oluyi, the PRO of NACETEM. But once again, I want to recognize the presence of the DG, CEO, National Center for Technology Management. You're highly welcome, sir. Also, I would want to welcome Engineer Kazim Sanusi. He would like to say one or two things. A transport consultant internationally and nationally. He would like to make one or two contributions. I want to leave the floor open to him right now as I invite him. Engineer Kazim Sanusi, the floor is open, sir. You're highly welcome. Your contribution will be highly appreciated, sir. Mr. Kazim Sanusi. Can we all hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't.
Okay, to be sure, it's not my network that's having problem. Mr. Kazim Sanusi, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah, maybe you should go ahead if you cannot be reached.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Also, I would like to welcome Professor Adewumi Samuel. The professor at the School of Transport and Logistics Studies, Lagos State University. He has been online, and I would like to also make one or two contributions, though he has been having network challenge. I hope he's still online. Professor Adewumi Samuel, you're welcome, sir. Professor Adewumi Samuel, it seems he's still battling with his network. All right, I will want to hand over to Dr. Emmanuel Mogaji once again while we wait for one or two contributions from the people we have called and contributions from all the stakeholders online. I remain my humble self, Olayemi Fumilayo Dixon. Thank you very much. Dr. Mogaji, you're welcome once again, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I guess I quickly want to respond to one of the comments by Imrana Abdurrahim. We said, since the presenter narrowed everything to passengers transport on the road, can we also consider service transformation for both passengers and freight transport in other modes like rail, airline, and maritime? Yes, again, thank you so much for sharing that observation. Like, yes, I recognize that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you really followed me from the beginning, where I actually showed you a different transport mode. I showed the train. I showed the boat as well. And again, it's just left for us to see how we can take this perhaps beyond just road. So let me throw back the challenge to you to say, moving on, how do we really provide this inclusive transportation? And that was why I gave some illustration about the train, about the terminals, and also perhaps getting on the boat. So I recognize your point. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the whole idea is just for us to start this conversation. Even though you might think it's on road, what have we learned? What have you reflected on? And what can we do moving on? Irrespective of the transport mode we are thinking about, how can we design our transport services to be very inclusive and to recognize the need of everyone? So again, thank you so much, Imran, for sharing that. I recognize your comments. And I think, I hope I've been able to really address that. Yes. Thank you. Yes. That will be all from my side now. That's all the questions I've got.
Okay, Dr. Mogaji.
Sir.
Yeah, there's Ashiru who wants to know in what ways specifically can technology be incorporated into the TTS design.
Thank you so much, Ashiru. Thank you. So when we talk about technology, we need to recognize assistive technology. So assistive technology is what we have around to make sure that people are able to, let's say, find their way around. So number one, how do you find the please So we need to think about assistive technology. So thinking about technology. So let's think about, remember I gave you three barriers. First is the micro, which is the bus, the train, or the boat operator themselves. And also the vessel, which is the terminal. So let's think about terminal. How do you expect somebody who is sort of blind to find their way around the airport terminal? How do you expect somebody who is blind to find their way around the bus terminal? So this is where we talk about assistive technology. This is where we can install beacons around the terminals to give nudge and pings to people who are visually impaired, and they can tell them how to walk around the terminals. So this is something that is very popular. Also, you've got, for people perhaps who can see, you've got perhaps not even to find their way around, even the floor surface. That could be something that could be done in terms of making sure people know where they are. Remember, the tactile feature can also be used for people who are vulnerable. And even the announcement that is going on in the airport, in the terminal, is one of them. So this is even still talking about the service provision environment. Also the visuals that direct people on where to go. Also, you could have some like assistive telephone ports. So that means you have a telephone standby around the platform whereby people can call and press a button and say, you know what, I am on platform 72. I don't know where to go. Also, you could have an app that helps people navigate their way around the terminal. So these are some of the ways technologies can be incorporated, because we want to make sure that everybody is able to find their way around. So you have this technology that you can have an app, you install it on your phone, it can give you number of steps, direction to go, say, okay, you tell it, I'm going to platform 5, okay? Take 5 steps, turn left, take 10 steps, turn right, directing you to the place. So that's for the service, that's for the service provision environment. But when we talk about the service provider themselves in terms of technology, even having a contactless card on your bus can be considered as a technology to make sure that everything is inclusive. Having the audio visuals in your own van, in your own bus, in your own boat or train to let people know that, yes, we are getting there. Also having mobile apps with Bluetooth that connects the bus with your mobile phones and the bus stop. Remember that triangulation, the bus stop, and your mobile phone. So it tells you the bus is at so place and you are here and the bus stop is there. So even if you are blind or if you are deaf, everywhere what is going on, you can get a nudge on your phone that the bus is coming or the bus is here. And also technology can be in forms of, again, about the app, whereby you can request for a service on your mobile phones to make sure that, yes, the transport operator knows your need. Even booking your ticket online could also be formed about this transformative service, whereby people we don't need to start struggle with, I can't see my change, I can't see my money, how do I pay? So these technologies are some of those things to recognize, and all importantly is how do we incorporate it one step at a time to make sure that we provide an inclusive service for everyone. Thank you. I hope I've been able to answer the question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, I think it's up to you, sir, to give maybe the closing remark in case there's no other question.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful program, and we thank everybody for having the patience to listen out. Generated so much that we have up to almost 40 questions that needed answers, and we really need to do a lot of follow-up on this and then be able to reach out and see how we can push it from there. The transformative service generally is been a new lesson that we are going to take home here. It really does not apply to transport alone. It applies with both health services, finance services, and the one that really concerns us is the aspect of transport, which we have looked at. The transformative transport service design requires a redesign of our existing transport system so that we can accommodate all and encompassing the vulnerable. And I like the concluding part. It fits you. If you think you are not disabled today, you will become a senior citizen later, and you will need these services. And if it's not available, if you have not played your role in making it available, when you become that senior citizen, when you need to walk around with the need of this service, then you will remember that it could have been better. I think we've had a wonderful time in this program. And for those who joined us, it's been a large turnout. The professors from the universities, the CIRT people, I saw quite a number of them. From the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we saw Mrs. Obamedu. And for our friends in Malaysia, Abdughanil, Arobani, and all of them, I saw your names on the list. We thank you all for joining us. The relationship we are forming with NACETEM and NITT, this is just the beginning of what will really come out of it. And then we know that in technology, you need some level of innovations to it before it can become applicable to the present day system. The NITT and the NACETEM are looking forward to a good relationship. Yes, CEMRI is also coming into this relationship, and it's really a good thing. And we're open from the part of NITT, we're open to it. Unfortunately, my DG is still in the Emir's Palace in Kanu, and he really will not be with us. But he sends his felicitation to the, and I'm sure he's following up, because I saw the people from his office and I'm sure the reports will be presented to him at the end of it. Let me take a little time to really let you know the person of Dr. Bayero Salih Farah. In the last 3 years, he has transformed the institute into a very world-class institute that we can access from almost all over the world. And our facilities have been improved tremendously across the country. We are now located at 8 locations in the country with equipment that are world standard. And we are not stopping. We are still improving and increasing our reach for the country, because our interest is to be able to transform the entire transport system in the country. And he's doing a wonderful, great man's job in this regard. I think by and large, we thank everybody for participating in this program. And as more and more programs are being turned out, we will let you know, and we'll promise to send the Dr. Mogaji slides to all your mails that you use in registering. And I hope I have the agreement of Dr. Mogaji for that. And
yes, you do, sir. Yes.
Yeah, so that would be great. So we'll pick it up from there. You've done a wonderful job, Dr. Mogaji, because initially we were like, what role can this part of the work play in transformative service design? But we can see now that, particularly for transport, it is very essential and it is very critical, and we shall continue to play our part in terms of policy formulation, in terms of being a government representative in transport. Training, like you mentioned, is required, and we'll do our best in this. Thank you very much for your program. Thank you for your presentation, and we hope to pick it up from there.
Thank you, sir. We've got Dr. Mr. Kazim. Is he able to also, we've been trying to get him on the phone. Mr. Kazim, are you also available now?
Oh, yes, I have been. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, and I'm sure we can.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Perfect. Great. I must say, this is the way to go. And I'm really impressed that NITT, NACETEM, and Dr. Mogaji and Koko can pull this off. You see, the thing is, a lot of us, we've been either consciously or unconsciously worried about the possibilities that we are yet to tap, the potentials of universal accessibility, sight, sound, and feel, that we're yet to tap in Nigeria. And unfortunately, we also have a lot of people who have deficiencies in these areas. Even some of us who we feel or walk around not knowing that we have sight deficiencies, not knowing that some may be diabetic and they're already having feeling deficiencies. So a lot of this is happening. Transport sits at the intersection of health, wealth, and climate. So until we manage to co-opt everyone, leaving no one behind, we're not getting anywhere. And some of the things, the challenges that we have is the fact that there's a lot of sectoral silo planning and programming. How do we mitigate? How do we let every other stakeholder in the development space know that transport is actually a backbone infrastructure that connects economies and allows them to overlap? How do we let people know that you cannot be developing, for instance, hospitals and not factoring transport and all those who would access the hospitals? You cannot be developing new cities and not factor that. You can't be developing markets and not factor that in. So just factoring in the fact that, oh no, this is a market and all that is deficient in planning. We found that out over the years, because you have to go through from diagnostics to policies to reforms to stakeholder aspirations capture, so many things. But we have to, how do we get government to begin to insist on this kind of integrated planning approach? I think that this is a very good step in the right direction, and I pray that we can sustain it for the benefit of our people, our country, and our economy. Most importantly, I always try to link transport to economy. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I love the fact that I could make this webinar. Thank you very much. And Dr. Mogaji, great one. Your presentation is amazing. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Remy, for pulling this off. Yemi, NACETEM, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. For
Best of luck to Nigeria as we proceed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any final word, Dr. Mogaji?
No, I guess that. Thank you so much for this platform. It's been a pleasure to share this. I'm so pleased that we are able to break barriers, even though with the geographical limitations, we're able to really get this across and align with what Mr. Karim says about having this conversation and following with what you guys are doing at the NITT and NACETEM to see how can we change this narrative. It's a long-term thing. It's not something you can change today, but at least this is the start of many things. And thank you so much for everybody that has participated. Thank you so much for the comment and the questions. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Mrs. Dixon, I will hand it over for you to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, we also need to apologize for the video that we couldn't.
Oh, yes. That's all right. So apologies for that. We've recorded it so we can share that as well, perhaps for people who have not been able to hear. But don't worry, I'm real. There's a face behind this behind the screen. I am real. So this is not a machine.
Hopefully.
All right.
Nice one.
We want to say a very special thank you to all our participants. We want to say a very big thank you. And we hope to see more of your presence in our future programs as we send our invites across. Once again, we want to say a very big thank you, and we apologize for all deficiencies that may have occurred in the course of this program. No, I will promise that the next one will be much more better. Thank you, Dr. Mogaji. Thank you, Dr. Engineer NITT. Thank you, everybody. Once again, we wish you all the best in all your endeavors, and we hope to see more of you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. As we put or bring the program to an end, we'll say a very big thank you once again. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Well, we finished.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much.